All right, hello everybody. I'm just going to share my screen right here. Thank you very much for joining us for our webinar here today. This is the next one in our 2019 webinar series. My name is Megan from Metcalf. I'm the Outreach and Programs Manager for Culture Days. The National Culture Days weekend will take place on September 27th, 28th, and 29th this year, with regions, municipalities, and arts organizations all across the country hosting some kind of programming in their community over those 3 days. In addition to the Culture Days weekend that happens annually, we host sector resources, just like this one, taking place all throughout the year. So for today's webinar, there's going to be a focus on digital arts education. We'll be looking at how different educators and organizers are utilizing the web to host lessons and activities for young Canadians. So before I go too much further, I just want to show you a little bit of sort of the housekeeping so you have a bit of an idea of how the webinar platform works. You should see the platform right here. This is just a screen share, but yours will generally look like this. Everyone has that black tray down at the bottom. Mine might look a little bit different than yours, but everyone will have that little speech bubble with the little ellipses for chat. If you have any questions or if something isn't working properly, please click on that chat button with the speech bubble, and everyone will be able to see all of the speakers will be able to see what you've written. We're going to have a Q&A portion right there at the end, and I'll be able to read out all of the questions that have come up for the speakers. All right, great. So I haven't had any questions so far, so that's a good thing. Everything seems to be working. So before I get into the presentations and announce our speakers, I really wanted to briefly talk about some of our plans with education and why we decided to hold this webinar. So to start, we are inspired to have the webinar here today based on some of the existing education programs that we have already as part of Culture Days. We're very familiar with educational programming that takes part on the Culture Days weekend through things like school programs, as well as clubs, extracurricular activities, drop-in programs, etc. There are a number of provinces that lead special events for students on the Friday of the Culture Days weekend. Culture Days Manitoba has their annual school program at the Forks, which sees a full day of arts programming on the Friday of the Culture Days weekend, visited by kids from all over the Winnipeg area. LiveArts in Saskatchewan always hosts a cross-province digital program that we're going to hear about very soon, so I don't want to talk too much about. And other programs partner with individual schools to host things like field trips, workshops, or performances with and for kids, and this is a major part of their Culture Days offerings. So on top of this, we have lots of family-oriented activities that happen with visitors throughout the weekend. So we have quite a few things that are quite popular that involves families, children's directed programming, and the popularity of a lot of these got us thinking about the ways that we can provide additional arts education opportunities, both during Culture Days and throughout the year. We have an annual survey that we do through independent survey company Merrill Matchbox, and we started asking them a couple arts education related questions. Looking at this one right here, we asked people about arts education opportunities, and both attendees of Culture Days and the general population saw things like Culture Days as a great opportunity to supplement their children's exposure to arts and culture. We also saw that a lot of Canadians thought that there could be opportunities for more arts and culture in the classroom. This, looking both at the general population and attendees, got us thinking that there's definitely room to be thinking about the different ways that kids can be participating in arts and culture, both in the classroom and outside, and as I said, in things like extracurricular activities like clubs and all those kinds of things. We started to put together a learning resource ourselves that could be used by teachers or instructors. We worked with Ontario teacher, musician, and arts educator Douglas Friesen, who you're going to hear from in a second, to create a sound-based lesson and activity that can be used by anyone, anywhere, so long as they have a computer connection and a few very basic materials. So we're going to be hearing about Doug just about the end of this webinar, talking a little bit more about that lesson. So we're going to be launching the Soundmark Melodies lesson plan very soon at the end of this month. We're going to try and coincide it with the recording of this webinar. So that's just one more thing before I add. If you've missed this or you want to share this with any colleagues, we will be posting a recording on our website probably in the next week or so. Following some of our discussion with Doug and the creation of this lesson plan, we wanted to be able to continue a little bit more of the conversation about the kinds of resources that are being created by arts organizations and colleagues all across the country. So that's where some of the inspiration from this webinar is from. So I'm going to have all three of our speakers speak a little bit about some of the things that they do related to digital arts education. And then we're going to have a period of question and answer afterwards where you can ask any of the speakers or all of them a few questions. So now I'm just going to get into bios. So first we're going to hear from John Dalrymple. He's the Chief of External Affairs at Canada's National Ballet School, overseeing all fundraising, marketing, and community outreach programs. Previously, John held a variety of senior positions at the school in development and strategic initiatives, as well as an appointment as professor at Centennial College in the School of Hospitality, Tourism, and Culture. Canada's National Ballet School, or the NBS, is at the forefront of professional ballet schools in Canada, delivering a wide range of community programs that improve health and quality of life. Through its community initiatives, NBS promotes broad public participation in dance, providing dance activities to children, adults, and seniors. By leveraging a dynamic digital platform called Reach, an online learning management system, NBS is bringing the positive impacts of dance to a wide-ranging and more diverse audiences than ever before. We're also going to hear from Jay Kimball, who's the Community Engagement Program Consultant with Saskatchewan Arts, with a major project in his portfolio being LiveArts Saskatchewan, the program that we just mentioned. In addition to his work in LiveArts, he's also an award-winning ceramic artist and the co-owner of Flex Fine Art Studio. LiveArts Education is a dynamic distance education program for students in grades 1 to 9 in Saskatchewan. The program supports the Saskatchewan Arts Education curriculum and is delivered by the Saskatchewan Ministry of Education Live Network. LiveArts works with a host school to present a unique program, 2 schools from schools. They work with 10 professional artists and 9 schools each year to develop a curriculum-supported broadcasts that are streamed into schools around the province. And then lastly, we're going to hear from Doug, who's a Doug Friesen, sorry, who's a music educator and musician based in Toronto. He's led soundscape, listening, improvisation, and creativity workshops in Canada and Latin America. He's a protege of composer and educator R. Murray Schafer and has worked closely with him over the last 10 years. Doug is a music teacher and has been a curriculum consultant in the Toronto District School Board. He's currently working on a PhD and teaches courses for teachers at the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education. As a professional musician, Doug has played with John K. Sampson of the Weaker Thens, Dave Bindi of Radio Statics, and Ron Sexsmith. So we will have the presentations, as I said, followed by the Q&A at the end, and all of this is being recorded and will be posted on our website for your reference later. All right, John, you're unmuted, so you can start sharing your screen and your PowerPoint.
Okay, thanks so much, Megan. I hope it's working.
Do you have headphones that you can plug in that have a microphone?
I can look for some if you want to switch the order of the presentation.
Yeah, sure, that'd be fine. Sorry about that.
Okay.
All right, I know we had you, Jay, next in the order. Do you want to jump in? Is that okay?
Oh, for sure. I'm ready to go.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Sorry about everyone. Okay. So yeah, you can just share your screen right now and you can get started on your PowerPoint.
That's great. Is there a way for me just to share my face for a second?
Yeah. There's the start video button right beside mute or the speaker.
Okay. Oh yeah. Start video.
Great.
Oh, hi, everybody. Yeah, this is great. Yeah, I'm the program manager and host of LiveArts Saskatchewan, as Megan said, and really happy to be here today talking to you about what we do with LiveArts. I've got a little video I'm going to show you about LiveArts, but before I start that, I thought I'd just let you know that LiveArts is a distance education program that's been in existence since 2005. It was developed by an artist doing an artist residency, and she was discovering that when we teach classes, they just end, and there's only like 30 students at the most that we can really reach. And so it was kind of a perfect storm because her partner was working in digital media. So they created this program, and over the years, it's really adapted and changed, and has become a program where the students are now videotaping or creating the content, or capturing the content, I should say, and then sending it to schools all over Saskatchewan and to Canada. So I'm going to just share you a quick little video. There might be a little lag in the audio with the lip syncs. So this is from a principal in one of the last schools we just worked with.
Hi, I am Amanda Risling. I am the principal of the school in North Battleford, and I heard about LiveArts through our consultant at the Sky School Division. I didn't really know what to expect. I knew that they were bringing in an artist with much more expertise than I had, and that we were going to host, and it was going to be broadcast all throughout Saskatchewan. And for principals wondering, should we do this? Should we host? It honestly is so easy. The crew showed up. They brought everything that we needed. They built some confidence in our kids. Our kids got to be crew members and feel like they were part of the whole broadcasting. And then the kids came out with big smiles on their faces, and they felt like actors because people all over Saskatchewan were looking at them as it was broadcast. So it gave them a real sense of pride. It was awesome. It opened up our teachers' eyes in our own school. I know our grade 5 teacher was like, I had no idea this even existed. And so she's already went on to the website to see what other sorts of things are coming up. And I think it's just opened up a whole other possibility in our classroom. We had Randy in doing the beading, and none of our staff have that expertise or the knowledge behind it. And so I think that now that we know that that exists, we can keep our eyes out and bring that expertise into our classroom. It's awesome.
Okay, so I'm gonna just unshare that. Can you see me again?
Yes, I can see you. I can't see any of your slides though.
Okay, sounds good. I'm going to just set up another slide here for you. I'm going to take you on a little tour of our website, just so you can see what we're doing here. Can you see that now, everybody?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, great. So when you click on LiveArts Saskatchewan, you're going to be directed to our website, and as you can see, we have schools in Saskatchewan we're producing programs in English, and we're also producing programs that are in French. So we always make sure that we try and do 2 programs a year in French, just to have some diversity in our programming as well. We're really dedicated to ensuring that we have a strong representation of Indigenous-led programs, as well as newcomer-led programs and settler-led programs. So it's a really strong representation of arts that are happening in schools. What's kind of unique about this program is what we have developed are curriculum-connected programs. So we have, if you click around here, you'll see there's some program descriptions. So this is last year's programming. Our new programming gets launched at the end of August, beginning of September, for teachers to sign up. And you can see that there is kind of a diversity of different programming. With the Saskatchewan Arts Curriculum, our strands are drama, dance, visual arts, and drama. And so we try to also have a few programs of each. So when a teacher wants to sign on to our programs, what they do basically is they'll just go onto the website and they'll pick which one they want to sign up for. So I'll just select one here so you can have a look, so they can see the registration for the programs. And we have the artist do a quick write-up about what they're going to be doing. We talk about what strand it is, what grades they were hitting. All of our programs are focused for grades 1 to 8, focusing on elementary and middle years. And then we have kind of like lockdown broadcast dates, because we partner with SaskTel and the Ministry of Education to ensure that the programs are getting out to the schools. So when they sign up, they receive a link and then a reminder, and then they will basically just show up in their classroom, and the artist program is delivered live in their classroom. They participate along with the artist at a distance. And then you'll see here, each of these broadcast dates has like a post-broadcast activity. See the teacher guide. So with these teacher guides, I work with the artist, and we develop a project that the teacher and the students can work on either immediately after the program, or they can do it at a later time, just depending on their own schedule. So that building in that ability, I think, has been really good for the teachers. We always work with professional artists, and we really highlight the work that they do. So we work with artists that have a track record in working with schools and with community engagement, just to ensure that our digital program is as strong as possible. We also set up a lot of pre-broadcast preparation for the teachers, so they know what to bring to class and how to get their classroom ready. And so it's sort of like a recipe, I guess, for how it works. And then you'll see that we have the Saskatchewan curriculum outcomes connected to the program, and material lists and photos. So this just goes along. This program is free to schools, and they can basically sign up for as many programs as they want to. And then through that, we also have an option for some archived programs. So we have some archives that are here on our website, and with that, we have mostly the teacher guides, and then we also show bio videos of the artists. They're in the archives, but they're also in the main programs. And we find that having sort of like a pre-packaged video bio of the artist to kind of run at the beginning of our program to be really useful. They're fun and they're clean, and I encourage everybody who's watching today to click through our website and watch some of these bio videos by these incredible artists. What else can I tell you here? I'm just going to switch over to sharing a different screen here. Give me 1 second. Okay. Yeah, so I'll just run some photos here while I'm kind of going through here. What we do is when we set up in the school, we come in with all of our technical equipment, and the first day that we're there, we mentor the students on how to use the cameras and the switching boards, and we set up the classroom with the artist. And then the students help us produce the broadcast, which is a really great opportunity. And then there's opportunities for them to work in the post broadcast as well. So there's some in-classroom learning, and then the teachers at a distance, they get to use that teacher guide to do the program at home. So as I mentioned, we do lots of different media. So you see there's bass guitar here, and Felipe is also doing some dancing here. So the classroom learning is very small in terms of like the amount of students that are in there, but we have between like 800 and 1,500 students sign up for every broadcast that we do. So over the course of the year, we're looking at between like 30 to 40,000 students being reached in Saskatchewan. And the benefit of that is like Saskatchewan is such a huge province, and arts curriculum and arts funding kind of keeps disappearing. And so this creates an opportunity for us to send that information to these highly remote areas. And then during the broadcast, I have my phone on, and I let people know that they can text me. So I'm basically on the phone chatting back and forth through texts with classrooms and asking asking the artist questions. So it's really interactive for the classrooms at a distance, and so they really feel engaged, and I feel that that's really a really big part of it. This is one of our technicians. So we have like adult technicians that help set up all the gear and do the training. I kind of do the back end work and the hosting. I thought I'd just throw this slide in because I thought it was quite interesting. And this is like kind of rough numbers. Like don't say like, hey Jay, these are a little bit off, but they're pretty close. And what's happening here is I've got in the blue line, it's the number of student participations that we've had over the years, and then the number of funding investments that we've had over the years. So from like 2005 to 2013, we were kind of baselined with our funding and baselined with our student participations of about 3,000 students annually. And then you can see a spike in funding and investment. And then it really grew along with that as the reaching up until you could see the Canada 150 year in 2017. We were able to get a little bit more money from Canadian Heritage and do some national programming, and that really spiked our numbers and more promotion in Saskatchewan. So I just thought it was quite interesting that like the digital strategies aren't really exempt of funding either. It's like the more money you put in, the more you seem to get back out of it. So just an interesting note. This is sort of like a super boring slide. So I'm just going to read it to you, but so feel free to just listen along. I've been finding that working with digital strategies require a strong base of real life experiences, and then they translate into a successful digital program. And I guess what I mean by that is that all the artists have experience working with classrooms, and so have I. And so through that, we're able to put together a strong program. I think if you want to just jump in digitally without having a strong base in like the physical and into the real, it can be really hard because working in the digital presents all kinds of new issues, and if you don't have a good sense of how to do all the other stuff, the digital stuff becomes very overwhelming. We have, I guess this is an obvious one, probably speaking to the choir here, but arts are known to support student retention, and we've really noticed that the students that are engaged in our programs, they're showing up early to school. They're engaged on a level that teachers are often surprised at, which is great. All our programs are designed to connect to curriculum outcomes, which really makes it like a sellable feature to teachers because classroom time is precious and they want to get the best bang for their buck. We have some archives, as I'd mentioned, but what we're doing in our with the digital programs, the flexibility for the classrooms is our long-term plan is to basically package those like 10, 15 years of programs that we've been developed, edit them down, and then put them on a platform called Rover. And then the nice thing about Rover is it downloads to the servers at the school. And so when they sign up for it, it doesn't affect the bandwidth that's all in the school. And one huge benefit is that accessibility for live streaming isn't really an issue in Saskatchewan anymore because there's been such a strong investment to increase the bandwidth and to make sure the technology in schools is really strong. So LiveArts 10 years ago, 15 years ago struggled but with these things, but today it's completely possible. Live streaming is very great. One tip that I wanted to share was start with low tech and grow. So we're pretty advanced in our technology right now and how we do things, but at the beginning it was very simple. It was like one camera. Now we have 3 cameras and a full switching board and do live editing. Yeah, and then my last point is that online education means more engagement. So we're reaching like 30 to 40,000 students with an investment of less than $100,000 per year to run our program. But it can really degrade in its integrity if you don't put the work into like the teacher guides and making the connections with the teachers. So the way that we connect with our teachers is like a lot of word of mouth. Teachers know teachers, and they're very, very difficult to access through any kind of like email platform. So once one teacher signs up, then I can email them back and tell them to email other teachers. And so kind of that like on the ground roots approach has been quite useful. We also take out some other advertising, which can be helpful, but for the most part, it's teachers telling teachers about this opportunity. I just wanted to note quickly our sponsors. So Sask Culture is one of our partners, and they fund the program through the Sask Lotteries agreement. And they send the money over to the Arts Board, and the Arts Board then is kind of the lead facilitator of the program, lead partner. And then the government of Saskatchewan provides Ministry of Education support. So I have resources to the arts consultants to run curriculum questions by them, and they also help us immensely with technical support. And then I just wanted to note, so Culture Days you see here. So on September 27th, the Friday, we're going to be doing a special broadcast for LiveArts, and the focus on it is going to be with the national theme of well-being. And yeah, so it's basically creating a special program that's going to be run that day. When we did our national programs before, what we didn't think about was time zones, and we really had to minimize our programming because of time zone access. So what we're doing for this Culture Days is, instead of running a live program, we're going to do a pre-recorded, and then we're going to make it so it's available like to anybody all day long with all the different programs. So teachers can sign up no matter what time zone they're in, and they'll kind of get like a really close to live experience, but not quite live. So yeah, that's kind of the core of the program right now.
All right.
And yeah, so maybe I'll pass it off. Now.
Okay, thank you very much, Jay. And so as I mentioned, if you have any questions for Jay or LiveArts, just write them down there in the chat and we'll be able to read them all out afterwards.
Okay, and I'm starting. Hello, friends. So can you see my face now? Is that?
Yes, yeah, we can see your face. And then if you have any images you do want to share, you can just share them on the screen right there. Otherwise, we can just chat.
Thanks. And thanks for inviting me, Megan. And it's a pleasure to be here and hear some of the great work other folks are working on. And I also am noticing some names there in the chat of people that I've learned from. And so I feel a little nervous there. I got some of the things that you might hear me talk about, what I think about when I develop lessons come from none other than Alison Kinney-Gardhouse, who's listed there. And so it's a joy to see her name there and also be invited to be a part of this conversation. So I will try and find some images because I don't really want you to have to look at my my face, you know, at my Oise office here too long. Oh yeah, okay. I'll try and hook up my headphones. I see there someone's. Is that better if I do it that way? I'll just keep going, and you can let me know if it's still,
that works.
It's still bad. So as Megan mentioned earlier, I'm a public school teacher. That's really informs when I write lessons for people. And the first time I did that was for a project called the Arts Alive Canadian Composer Project, which Alison invited me to be a part of, which was such a joy. And then I also have been writing a little bit for the Massey Hall Roy Thompson Hall, who has an outreach kind of maybe 2 or 3 people on staff now. This is separate from the TSO. I've written a few lessons for the TSO as well, but and then I'm also informed strongly by Canadian composer Amory Schaefer, who felt, I know this isn't necessarily a digital thing, but I'll get to that in a second, who felt that kids are already creative individuals. And so when I write lessons, I really, really do think that there has to be a way to facilitate them being able to be a part of the lesson or their voice, and this is where maybe technology comes in, their chance to remix and speak back at the things that they're being, not just consume, but remix and speak back. And the perfect example of that is Snapchat, which I will not pretend like I know anything about, other than the fact that I've sat beside some people, teenagers and older people, who have shown me what it does. And it just basically often involves me laughing so much that my eyes start to water. But the thing I've been shown is that they can mess with what their image is or transform. And I think that's the power of arts education, and maybe in this case, digital, that kids get a chance to remix and essentially transform their lives, their reality. So some of the things I think about when I'm writing lessons for some of these organizations are, and I'm echoing Jay here, I think, maybe a lot of it will be echoing Jay, but I'll try and not be too repetitive, that it's meaningful to kids' lives and that it acknowledges that kids are already creative and already use technology. I mean, often when I'm teaching teachers, I say, there's no challenge. They already know technology, and they'll know it quicker than perhaps any of us will. Maybe not you, but me and some of the teachers I work with. But also meaningful to teachers' lives and their realities. Teaching classroom, I can say, I think a bunch of you I'm sure can say too, day-to-day classroom teaching is a hard gig. And when you're really there and present and trying to, involve your kids' creativity and getting them to make art and make music and, dance and do drama, it's a tough gig. But they're not only are they artistic and creative people, but they're being asked to do report cards. And not only that, I'm sure they're being asked to do 3 other initiatives from their school boards, whether they're private or public. And so it's a tough gig. And I feel like in that, and this is a lesson I think Allison taught me, is that the lesson plans need to be simple and not only simple, but malleable, and possibilities for complex work to happen within these simple instructions. And maybe I can try and give an example about my attempt at that when I get to the specific lesson that I wrote for Culture Days and Megan. But by malleable, I guess I mean that it's open, that teachers can quickly look, because some of these teachers pull this stuff out, right before their lesson, so that they can simply look at a set of instructions and then adapt it for the people in front of them, because the humans in front of them are very different than a different class set of humans. I know this is a very obvious thing, but it's something I think about a lot. We can't assume that all kids are the same or will react the same. So too much instructions and too many assumptions about how it will go, I don't think work very well. So the other thing I also feel, and I think, again, this maybe is a teacher thing more than a kid thing, but any technology that we're being at, the ones I'm writing are usually I'm not there, or sometimes I have lessons that they can work on but in between my visits or in between an artist visit. But I feel like any technology that's involved needs to have a quick uptake, or else it's just not going to happen. Teachers don't have, like I said, don't have time to learn how, even GarageBand, it gets, unless you have an hour to just basically go step by step through how people can mess with GarageBand. Kids, again, will be quicker. I'm not criticizing teachers. It's just a different digital literacy ability, or what they're used to. So quick uptake on any technology. And then I don't know how else to call this other element that I think about, is that it has to have this kind of aha, it's, maybe that's a bad way, or I could do that. Maybe that's the quotation I should use, is I feel like teachers will very quickly look at something and be like, yeah, I could do that. And that feels exciting to me. And I feel like if it doesn't have that, it's not going to be used. I don't know. Again, all of you lead busy lives, and maybe some of you are classroom teachers, but it needs to be helpful to them and not take time for them to even figure out what's going on. And then along the lines with that, along the same lines as that, having curriculum connections along the bottom is super helpful, because often secondary in Ontario anyways, but a lot of elementary teachers are often asked to show which objectives they're covering, what's the criteria, the success criteria, and along those lines, assessment possibilities. So at the end of my lessons that I write, I often have I often say, because this is my philosophy, I would encourage you, if you want to assess this, because not all work in classroom needs to be assessed, but I would encourage you to create success criteria with the kids. And there's a bunch of ways to do that, and there's a bunch of books, and I link one of them. But I also say there is a sample list of success criteria with a possible rubric at the end of the lessons. And that's just, again, because teachers are being asked, no matter how awesome and fun it is, teachers need to translate those things into marks and be able to justify it. So that's very helpful for teachers when presenting online lessons. So I already mentioned this, but I think that collaboration, the lessons, in my mind, have to offer a chance for the students to bring their own creativity, but exchange with each other, so small group work. But then, and this leads us more directly into the lesson that I wrote for Culture Days, maybe collaborate and facilitate outside of their classroom as well, which is just, at this time, as people have said, Jay and both Megan, that the possibilities are amazing for collaboration. So how do we, that meaningful thing when you're in a classroom and you have that, you can see a smile, you can, you're dancing to some sound or making sounds together. We need to figure out how to get that exciting social interaction to also happen online, because we also know that it doesn't always, right? I don't think we always feel that way when we're checking our Facebook page. Or so, I don't know. I don't have Facebook, so maybe I'm the wrong person to talk about that. So yeah, student voice is a big one, and I think technology, their voices and identities, I think ours are already in technology. So how can we mess with these? How can we facilitate where their creative reaction with their technology lies, and also how technology might allow them to creatively interact with their world and each other. So that leads me, I guess, to describing kind of maybe quite briefly, if that's okay, the Soundmark Melodies lesson that's going to be coming out for Culture Days this fall. I'm pretty excited about it. Maybe I'll show you briefly some of the things that inspire this lesson. So Megan and I got together to talk about possibilities for a lesson that might facilitate a collaboration across cities, provinces. And I've always been really excited about this because for those of you that don't know, Murray Schafer's work is often about sound marks and what we hear around us, but also later in his career he's still around, but started to do what he called the theater of the senses. So not just sounds, but collaborative artistic creations, happenings that involved all five senses. And I'm really interested in this because one of the powers of art for me is to facilitate empathy, what it's like to see with the eye of another or hear with the ear of another. And that's, I think, where this lesson centers around. So the lesson starts with a piece of Murray Schafer's that I can maybe show you a little bit about, so you can have a break of seeing my face. Okay, wait, I have to share my screen, don't I? There. Can you see that? I hope so.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a piece, I don't know if I can talk over it or if you'll even be able to hear it. I can post a link in the thing later, but this is a choir piece based on Schafer's sketches of snow around his farm in Northern Ontario.
Yeah, we can't hear that, but we can see the video.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Oh, I mean, it's beautiful to look at too, but
Yeah. If you can, post the link in the chat and then we'll be able to share it with everybody.
Guess what I'm going to do, friends? I'm going to do that right now so I don't forget to do it, if that's okay. Oh, I don't know how to go back to stop share. There we go. So as I said, this is a piece that Murray, he sketched snow and then wrote a choir piece. It's quite beautiful that based on that. So that's the first thing that students do in this lesson. And then they go on to sketch things around their homes. So what's your favorite spot around your around your home, around your school? Make some sketches. What are the shapes? What are the shadings? What are the forms and shapes? And students start to share those with each other in a class. But then the great part about what Megan was hoping for was that we could share these across cities, and that's where Creativables came in. which is an app that I just kind of started to learn about during this process, where students can post and interact and transform and compose with other students' posts as well. And I can talk about that a little bit more as well. And then the lesson moves on to ask students to take pictures around themselves. So landmarks, or I think in the lesson I didn't say landmarks because landmarks are sometimes decided by other people. So it's more interesting to me to ask students, what are the most significant things you see in your life? And that's inspired by a really amazing educator named Maria Guiso, who was working with ESL students in New York and gave them all disposable cameras to take pictures of their lives. And then they came in and described parts of their lives. And it's just such a beautiful article she wrote about it that I can, if anyone's interested, they can email me or ask me. So students post then these pictures and then start to describe these pictures to each other. So write descriptions of these pictures. And then again, they go from these pictures to sketches. And I have one sketch of this is teachers in Latin America when I was working in Brazil, because Schaefer's quite well known, a lot more well known in Latin America, it seems, than here in Canada. But there's a picture right there, and you can tell me if you can't see it, of teachers in Brazil sketching their neighborhoods. So you can see I don't know if you know Rio, but you can see the old water viaducts, and also the mountains and the ocean and people and the city. And then we ask students in this lesson to, with sound makers or instruments, make sounds that would go along with these shapes. So what do these shapes sound like? But also do a movement to go along with these shapes. Or maybe they decide that this shape is more a sound and this shape is more a movement. And so now, I'm pretty sure that teachers and students might find this, or I guess I've seen them find this kind of work interesting, but I feel like technology in this case allows something very important to happen, which I've already mentioned, and maybe I'll keep mentioning, is that they're not only using technology, I guess in this case, paper and pencil, but then pictures as well, to see their world, but transform it and then share it with each other, and then share it outside of their city. And they start to basically, how are our pictures different than someone's pictures in Brazil, or someone's pictures in Culture Day's case, someone in Northern Ontario versus an urban area or across this. So, and how do sounds and shapes change as you go across the country? And that comes from just my I guess interest in arts education really being about our senses. It's sensorial pedagogy. It's not necessarily, like, I find sometimes the word arts makes everyone think that we're just always doing products, but it's the process of seeing and hearing. And so if we can extend that with technology, not only to each other in a classroom, but also broadly in a country and even outside of the country, then it's, so then in the lesson earlier, I should have shared this with you earlier. I do show pictures I do show various examples for students to describe what these shapes sound like. Can you see those now? It's funny. I guess all I'm thinking about is Brazil, it seems. I just want to go back to that beach there. But actually, and then this one's in where I grew up in Manitoba. So it's ice skating actually out in the middle of a field. So we ask students, what do these sound like? What shapes are in them? What forms, what movements would go along with these pictures? And then finally, we ask students in groups to make a composition that uses elements of each of the group members' sketches and pictures, but also might use elements of one they shared on the Creatibles app too with another school, or a group of students in a different city. So I guess I see technology. Murray Schaefer did not like technology at all. It's kind of funny that I'm using him in this way, but one of the things he was really interested in is capturing lost sounds in particular, that we don't have any sound museums. And so technology allows us to do that now. So it's kind of this beautiful, pushback at him, thinking, I don't want to have a phone, I don't want to have a computer, but then yet some of the things he was really curious about being possible are possible now. And that I did that. If you look at there's a sound museum website or lesson for Massey Hall. They're shut down for 4 or 5 years for a renovation. And I asked before they shut down, if they could let us in there for 4 or 5 hours to capture all the sounds that'll disappear, all the old chairs, the creaking of the floor, the stages being replaced. And we went from the basement all the way to the attic and recorded these sounds and then put them online for kids to be able to not only hear and interact with their past, but remix it, make music with it, make dance pieces with it. So that to me is I guess the real strength of technology is that it allows kids to interact with their world, learn about their world, but also transform it. And that having said that, that's the big idea, but also that it needs to be really easy for the teachers to use. And I don't mean they're brilliant, intelligent people, but they don't have a lot of time to learn about a new lesson or learn about a new app or something. So I think if that's okay, I'll end there. And I'm happy.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That was great. It was good to hear a little bit about your own personal philosophies, but then talking a bit about the Culture Days related lesson plan as well. All right. So we're going to, here, I'll just mute you over here, Doug, and unmute you, John. I'm hoping everything is working well now that this has been restarted.
You tell me, is it working?
Yes. Oh, thank goodness.
All right.
Great.
Okay, good. How much time did you want to leave for questions at the end?
Well, we can, I know we've had a few technical difficulties, so even if we're like a couple minutes over 3, that's okay.
Okay, I will do my best to go through it quickly.
Okay. And then if you do want to start your video or do your screen share, yes, you can just do that right now. There we go. Beautiful. Okay,
so what I think I'm going to provide, it was great to hear Jay and Doug speak there, is I guess I'm going to talk a bit about an organizational view on the role of technology and how that as a mature arts organization can help transform the role and impact an organization like ours can have in society. So as principally originally starting in 1959, an elite Olympic caliber ballet training facility, it's still at the core of what we do, but it's allowed us over the decades to develop a great deal of expertise around how to use dance as the platform to allow an individual to be the very best individual they can be. And obviously when they have Olympic caliber potential, then they can be world-class dancers. But what if they have dementia and are living in long-term care? Or if they're a young person who might even be, facing mobility or cognitive challenges in the public school, if you bring dance with the right philosophy of teaching into those spaces, you can also create opportunities for them to be the very best that they can be, regardless of their aspiration. And that really ties into this question we had for ourselves, is what does MBS mean to the average Canadian? What does elite ballet training and professional arts training in general mean to the average Canadian? And I think for us, we were recognizing that we were at a moment where if we didn't start to make some strategic shifts in our engagement with the community, ballet could be like ancient Greek in Canada. It could become a lost language. And we know that ballet is vibrant. We know that it's relevant. We know that it's always changing, but it isn't reflective necessarily of the diversity of the country. And it isn't something that every Canadian thinks is valuable in their lives. And we started to ask ourselves what is valuable to Canadians. And 3 really important issues came up. Obviously, equity and inclusion is a huge reality in Canada. It's what strengthens this country, but it also is the force that's changing the face of what this country looks like. And as an art form that is we're a national institution, how do we make sure that our student body, which is then going to be the professional artists of tomorrow, that we're reflecting that diversity? Also, aging is a real issue in this country. Already there are more people over the age of 65 than under 15 for the first time in Canada's history. And we know that dance and physical activity in general have real singular opportunity to help people age with more confidence and age better. And then well-being in general is really important. People's health generally, kids getting more physical activity, communities feeling more socially inclusive. These are all things that arts in general can do, but dance specifically has a really important role to play in bringing communities together. So we had to make sure that we ensured that we were reflecting the full spectrum of society and serving that full spectrum of society that we lived in. So as the leading arts or dance training organization in the country, we thought we need to make sure that we do what we need to do to make sure that dance is valued and understood by all Canadians. And that's not necessarily by shoving ballet down everybody's throat, but by using dance generally, something that is universal, something that is health promoting as a way of getting people into the water system, to bring dance into their lives in meaningful ways. And then what happens on stage or at the elite level becomes far more relevant to you if you've brought dance into your life in a meaningful way. And for our own organization, it allows us to think about the fact that there are tons of talented students out there, prospective students, who have not had the opportunity to try any formal training, to even have a positive interaction with dance. So if we can start to change that narrative where students in public schools, for instance, are having really positive engagements with dance, then we're creating the audiences of tomorrow and finding the talent of today. So when we thought about our strategic plan and our priorities, it was really this. Some of these may seem to folks different from what you'd expect an elite ballet school to have as their priorities. But first and foremost, our commitment to excellence comes through in our programming priority, but it's really about how we use the excellence in dance teaching as a way of transforming lives for the better. And I know this comment's come up already in this presentation that it's more about the process than it is about the product. And that's where we sit as an organization. We're not about presentation of dance. We're about engaging people in dance, learning and loving to dance. And so that's really where we focus our energy and activities. And engagement is another huge priority. We want to make sure that what we do is broadly accessible and that people are aware of it. And then like any organization, we want to make sure that our funding model is stable, but also dynamic. And using technology and expanding our work in the community has created a whole wealth of new opportunities to attract both public and private supporters to the school who really appreciate the potential of the work to bring dance for health promotion into the community. The school has core programming areas. It started with a professional ballet program, and early on, 40 years ago, we realized that the best way to sort of propagate our philosophy around dance teaching is to train dance teachers. And so we have a teacher training program that trains professional educators to go out and run studios and work as dance teachers across the country and around the world. We also recognize that in our own community, we should be having recreational ballet programs that provide a structured, formal approach based on our curriculum to give kids who are doing it possibly for a professional career, but certainly for fun and for development can have that opportunity. And then the last 5 to 10 years, we put a huge amount of focus into our community engagement programming, looking both in streams of programs for kids and programs for seniors. For us, when we look at community programming, it's really about creating a whole ecology that strengthens the dance sector in general, but creates opportunities for everybody's quality of life to improve. And when you look at this chart, which is adapted from Sport for Life's long-term athlete development model, you can see whether we're engaging youth in general or seniors or actually targeting kids with the potential to have a professional career. They go through that same process of having an engagement through dance that's really positive and community-based, that is a gateway then to recreational programming and then more serious training and ultimately to being a professional. But the end goal is to bring dance into life for quality of life for every Canadian. So we'd ask ourselves the questions, why take dance education online? If you've ever been to the ballet school to watch a class, you'll see that it's something that is intensely personal. There's a 3 adult to 1 student kind of ratio in terms of the training and care of the students at our school. And it's very physical. You have to make very minute corrections in person. So how meaningful would it be to take dance online? Well, for us, the key reason of why to do it was because digital solutions can address key barriers to engagement and participation. Those big barriers that we've identified and focused on with technology solutions is geography. Canada, as we all know, is massive and fairly sparsely populated. So how can we, based in Toronto, be connecting with Canadians all across the country? Well, technology gives us the opportunity to do that at scale, and in some cases to be everywhere at once. Representation is a big issue. Many of the traditional Western art forms that make up the largest institutions, arts institutions across our country, don't truly reflect the cultural diversity of Canada. So one thing you can do with technology is there are amazing artists of color from all different cultural backgrounds who often do not have a platform like we have to showcase their work, to express themselves, and to be seen by kids in the community who look like them, to say, hey, an opportunity for me to create as an artist is now something that I could see myself doing, or I would like to be considering, you know, a professional career in the arts, which never seemed like something for me because I didn't see anybody who looked like me in the theater or the opera house. And the reality is, with technology, you can create content that's then disseminated across the country that highlights those underrepresented artists in a way that gives them a really exciting platform to inspire others. And then cost is another barrier to participating in the arts. Certainly dance training is the second most expensive thing for a family to put their kid into after hockey. So it's something that can be a barrier, even if the young person is talented and passionate. It may be something beyond what their parents can afford. And certainly schools, for instance, can't afford, most of them, to bring in a specialist dance teacher to do a residency in their classroom. But through technology, we can provide content and resources for the end user, no cost. So how do you take dance education online? The goal for us is augmentation, not replacement. We don't believe that there's an online solution that's superior to dance engagement in person. But what we want to do is create the conditions that makes dance more present in people's lives. And fundamentally for us, it's not about sending dance content for people to passively consume. It's using online tools that motivate people to come together in their communities and to physically move and dance. So that's a huge distinction for us. It's not about a content dissemination system for the sake of watching. It's for the sake of providing the content that gets people moving. And starting at the bottom of my bullet list there, the kind of content I mean is actual artists we work with in the community or our faculty delivering structured dance programs that tie into school curriculum that are often cross-curricular, as well as content that addresses, say, special needs for people with physical or cognitive limitations. That kind of content is beamed into community spaces through webcasting solutions that allows people to have the benefit of the kind of expertise that we have and the artists we work with have, but bring it into their community space. Knowledge translation is also really important. We have an evidence-informed approach to what we do. And so we can use technology to share what we've learned, but also to inspire others in the community who have the capacity to engage youth, to engage seniors, to understand the importance of dance in bringing quality of life to communities. And then training, it's another thing that's really important. We fundamentally believe in a teach a person how to fish model. So we use online tools in order to provide training support, say for public school teachers or after school programmers at a Boys and Girls Club, to be able to meet the needs that they have. So they have goals and requirements that they are mandated to meet. We can help them do that through creative movement and dance and give them the support and resources they need that they actually don't have in their undergraduate or graduate education, and they often aren't able to access in their facilities. We put all this in something we call REACH. That's our online learning management system. And it's a freely accessible platform where the public, certainly for those individuals working in communities with youth, with seniors, are able to access this wealth of content to bring it into their communities. We have a section of the online system called MBS Kids, and this is really where we have activities, as I mentioned, that are cross-curricular. For instance, you can learn about or you can teach students in, say, grade 4 about the life cycle of a frog by using creative movement. So you're ticking 2 boxes, actually 3 boxes. You're ticking a box around arts and phys ed curriculum. You're ticking a box around the science curriculum, and then you're ticking a box around daily physical activity. So kids are learning concepts around, say, how a frog develops from a tadpole to a leaping frog through creative movement. So they're embodying those things. It helps kids reinforce those concepts, but it also gets them out of their seats and moving, and certainly gives teachers the opportunity to double down on a couple of teaching objectives, which considering how much time pressure they face, we get great feedback that that's a huge asset. As you can see in some of these screenshots, there's artist Christine Friday, who has a Cree background. We have a Métis jigging exercise, and this is a growing library of activities that can be used to bring this content into classrooms and after school spaces. And it's also that platform to share the perspective and voice of diverse artists. In our senior space, we have training for dance teachers and recreational therapists to bring dance into long-term care facilities and retirement homes. But we also work with a whole range of community spaces and retirement living communities to beam weekly classes through technology into spaces where seniors have come together socially to dance. And it is an evidence-informed program produced by MBS and Baycrest Health Sciences in Toronto. And it's something that not only gets thousands and thousands of seniors dancing and staying physically active through dance, but it's also creating opportunities for a new stream of revenue for the organization, as many for-profit retirement living communities exist, and they seem prepared to pay a per-class fee to access this, which as an arts organization, we're always looking for innovative ways to bring in that revenue we require. And then the piece that kind of brings a lot of these communities together is something we call Sharing Dance Day. And it's a nationwide dance party. We every year get a Canadian choreographer to create a new piece of fun, accessible choreography. And we teach the whole country how to do that choreography. And then in events we organize in major cities, as well as hundreds of other events organized grassroots locally. This past year, 48,000 Canadians got together to perform in early June, a piece of choreography created by AC Mensa and Philippe Andre Jacques. And it's a program we've been running since 2014. And it's something that is a great catalyst to raise the profile of dance. And again, bring into these community spaces the opportunity for everybody, regardless of your talent or your aspiration, the opportunity to dance. And for us, this is really why technology is essential to our mission of sharing the transformational power of dance. And I think I can wrap it up there. So I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you very much, John. That was great to be able to hear things. And one thing I noticed was that everybody seemed to talk a lot about process versus product. I really liked how that came out in each one of the presentations. It seems like that's definitely something everyone's thinking about as they're starting to create those lessons. So we have a little bit of time for Q&A from people. So please, if you have questions for any one of the panelists, just put it in the chat there. If it's for someone specific, please include that name. And if it's just sort of for the panel generally, we can do that. And I will turn all the panelists' microphones on, so that way we can hear from everybody. The first question is for John, asking, do participants subscribe to REACH? Is there a cost? And because you had mentioned that the seniors' homes pay, so is it different for schools versus the seniors program?
It is, yeah, thanks for that question. You do have to register just so that we know who you are and we can communicate with you. But all of the kids programming is 100% free.
Okay, thank you. And another question, I guess, for you, John, just to keep it going here. How do you reach your audiences, in particular students?
It's quite a tricky process. It's a combination of working with a lot of partners. For instance, like Physical and Health Education Canada and the various provincial organizations that support phys ed teachers, because that's where a lot of the dance activity is in the curriculum, is often in the phys ed curriculum. And we work with similarly provincial and national teacher associations. We try to work with individual school boards, but there are so many of them. They're all so completely different that there isn't sort of a silver bullet on how to do that. And then we try to do a lot of advertising and trade publications, going to a lot of conferences where we present, we do workshops, and we try to sort of get people aware of what it is that we're doing. And yeah, so it's just, I guess, a multifaceted approach to try to get the word out. And I think as one of my colleagues mentioned earlier, I think it may have been Jay, that a lot of it is then working with the teachers who are already excited about it to see if they can help spread the word around the opportunity to get engaged in this. Okay,
thank you. Someone's asking how you find and hire and pay the artists. How do you, what's the process for hiring the artists for the program?
Did you want me to answer that one?
It was actually, I guess, yeah, if anyone, it was actually for Jay. Yes, you're right. Sorry, I thought that was for John, but yes, Jay, how do you hire those artists?
Sure. So we work with artists that have a track record in community engagement and arts education, so that we're working with professional artists who are also professional educators to a certain degree. And then we follow the CARFAC national rate of payments that's been set up for visual artists. So if you look online at the CARFAC professional fee schedule, it changes every year. It changes with inflation. And so we pay according to that. Like for instance, this last year, the artist was paid for 2.5 days of preparation, so that would include their time to create the bio video with our videographer and for them to create an outline and to do some practicing. So they get paid probably about $1,200 to $1,400 for that planning. And then during the 2 full days in the school, they'll be paid a full presentation fee of $525 a day. And that's the CARFAC minimum rate. So if artists require, more than that, then we negotiate. But if they're willing to go with that minimum fee, that's kind of how we present the contracts. And as I mentioned, we get our funding through the lotteries agreement. And so with that, working with the Arts Board, we have a level of accountability to ensure that artists are paid appropriately, or we just don't do the work.
Great, thanks. Another question was about, for you, Jay, again, about national programming. You said that a few times you've scaled up to have this nationally. How do you have to change the lessons, or do you change the lessons based on whether or not you're thinking about a Saskatchewan audience or a Canada-wide audience?
Right. So when we did the Canada 150 ones, we selected a Saskatchewan artist and then asked them to collaborate with a national artist of their choice that they wanted to work with from another province. And so we had enough funding to bring that national artist to Saskatchewan. And then by connecting with them, they also helped us connect back with their national audience. So that was a little bit of a shift that we made. Moving forward for the Culture Days, one we're doing in September, we are just going to be working with one Saskatchewan artist, but the difference is it's basically as simple as like flipping a switch to allow schools from a distance, like that are outside of Saskatchewan, to register for our programs rather than just Saskatchewan schools. So we just presented on a different platform, and the Ministry of Education and SaskTel help us get that going. In terms of the content and curriculum, we don't really change it that much. I think if we were to dive a little deeper, it'd be advantageous for us to kind of look at what other art curriculums outcomes are across the country and maybe try and find something that's a bit more unifying. But elementary arts education, I think, is similar across the country.
Great. Question for John. You talked about Dance Day or National Dance Day. When is that, and how can everybody take part?
So it's we used to do it on a certain day. Originally, it was International Dance Day, which is in April 29th, and we realized that there's still a lot of snow and stuff in the northern parts of the country, so that wasn't going to work for everybody. And we moved it to a warmer time of year in June, and we also realized it was still problematic to try to get every community to try to do it on a single day, because it's just not going to work for everybody. So we look at basically a 2-week window at the beginning of June, and we'll announce when we do ours. I think ours will be on June 12th in 2020 at Harbourfront Center. But then partners we work with, and then all the other folks who are engaged in it, just sort of pick a time that makes sense for them in and around that early June period.
Great.
And then I would just say that in January, we launch all the resources, which allows you to learn the choreography and access all of the content. We launch that every January.
Thank you. All right, that seems to be all of the questions that we have had come in. So we will just wrap up the webinar right now. Thank you very much to all of our panelists for talking to us, even with some of our technical difficulties. And thank you for all of you for listening in. We will again be continuing to communicate some of our education platforms and the new things coming out in the next coming weeks as we get closer to the Culture Days weekend. And as always, you can email me if you have any questions. You would have been linked to my email in your webinar login. Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you all soon.